New York City is gangbusters, y'all. Gangbusters. Not good. Not good. No, that's not necessarily true. We'll talk about it. All right, folks, welcome to Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. I'm your host, Rich Barris, the People's Pundit. Don't forget to like the videos if you like them and share them far and wide. All right, let's look at some early voting data, and we'll talk about what we are seeing in the polls and have been seeing throughout the weekend, really, when it comes to the president. Some specific stuff that we asked people. Look, I woke up Saturday morning to a lot of angry phone calls. I'm not Mr. Popular over there right now. But look, the bottom line is the right is in a bubble, and someone's got to pop that bubble. And, honestly, that kind of is the job over here. Bubble popper. I've tried to be a bubble popper for the left for a long time because I do think that it's better when our political parties don't live in bubbles, when our political leaders don't live in bubbles. That leads to a widening gap between the have and have-nots, between the rulers and the ruled, between the governors and the governed, right? Which is supposed to be a system here in the United States that is built on the consensus of those who are governed. So it leads to instability. And it is becoming very evident that the left is not the only political persuasion in this country capable of living in a bubble. And the question is whether or not they're the only ones incapable of popping their own bubble. That is the only question right now. All right. So we'll tell you a little bit more about what we are seeing and what voters told us over the weekend. I intend to print out some interview transcripts and give them to anybody who wants to look. Because I will tell you this, ladies and gentlemen, when you're doing peer-to-peer interviews or you're doing text-to-online mode, which is initiated the same way, an agent, a la me, an employee, someone we don't like to contract out like call centers do. We will initiate a conversation with a voter the same way you would call them, only maybe you send them a text and you say, hey, look, we tried to reach you. We're talking about XYZ this weekend. We're asking people their views. We really think your voice matters. We'd love you to give us a couple of minutes of your time. And some of them will elect to take a peer-to-peer interview. A lot of it now can be done with AI. However, there's all these regulations I'm not going to bore you with called 10DLC. And while the AI does, for instance, it's scary how well it mimics me. I'll conduct maybe 10 interviews, and then the AI is learning how I react with people, and it can take over. It's crazy. I don't mean take over in a scary way. I mean, I could say, oh, I forgot those groceries I had to go and get. Boop, AI, you run, and you would never know the difference. It's going to say things like, folks, right? Because it knows it's me. And some people, again, will decide to initiate peer-to-peer interviews. And a peer-to-peer is literally, I am interviewing them back and forth in a text message. I'm saying, if you want to do this, you can. Or if you don't want to talk live, we can redirect you to a survey link, which at this point in time, most people are electing to do. All right. Most people are like, just send me the link, bro, and I'll do it at my convenience, which, by the way, we do give people, and I'm not going to give out some secrets, but we do give people leeway. I will use that phrase because we understand people are busy. So often they will later get back to us and they will later say, hey, Rich, it's Mike. I finished it. Just wanted to let you know. Oh, by the way, we were talking about issues, and if we were talking live, I would have told you this. A lot of times, voters will just do the surveys and they're done. But because of the nature of some of the questions that we have been asking, but we asked this weekend specifically, people wanted to give a little bit more information, and that is not typical. Some of them are even warned, that depending on their carrier, they may get extra charges for texting back and forth like this. And yet, we're still getting their views. And I got to tell you, a lot of them are from Trump's supporters. Actually, the vast majority of them are. I mean, that's just clear. They want us to know that they love the president, but, all right? And that's not typical, guys. It's not. And there are some from independents who are just like, and you're going to see, I mean, we're going to go over them. I believe, I don't know if I'd have to ask Laura if we ever did send, because one of the tweets that I put up got a lot of attention, as you can see. And I got calls for it about it. Like, what the hell is this? And I did send them like, look, when somebody sends you grocery store memes, you should listen. When somebody's saying, I'm going to take a second to go meme from Facebook, which one of these memes, by the way, we saw multiple times. I wonder if you guys have ever seen this meme, because I did not until it was passed to Laura, and Laura was like, oh my God, I got to share this with Rich. And then I looked and I'm like, I know that meme. I just saw this. People were sending this thing, and apparently I looked it up, and apparently it's a viral thing. It's hilarious, but Americans can be very funny sometimes. And I don't know if David Giglio was watching when it happened. I told Laura to save it, and I was like, oh my God, we got to send this to David because it's funny. All right. Now, I don't want people to see. Hold on one second. Hold on. I'm going to get it for you. All right. Okay. I should be able to share. What is it? You're able to I know that she does this. Laura does this. She takes the video off of, let me see if I can do it. She takes the video off of Facebook somehow, and I'm not sure how she does it. All right. So let's just look. Facebook video downloader. I want to show you this. Otherwise, I got to go into my Facebook, and you got to see my Facebook. And I don't really want to show you that. I don't really like Facebook anymore. I don't go on Facebook often at all. Oh no, I got it. Download it in HD, please. Yeah, this is the one she uses. There it is. Grocery meme. And if you go and find this video on Facebook, you will see that it currently has this one that was okay. There are two different links. Same video, two different links. One of them has only about 100,000 and something views. The other one has like 4 million views. So people are watching this thing like crazy. And I think it's hilarious, but it's not. And the right's it's not if you're the right and you're trying to figure out, what's going on here. How do we figure out how to generate enthusiasm? Because the enthusiasm seems to be there in polling. But if we're looking at some of the early voting data, it's just not there. And I'm telling you what's going on. Normal people who voted for Donald Trump, and I have said this so many times, it's getting ridiculous. The Republican Party's entire job after 2024 was to convince these voters, who some of these stupid consultants and influencers on social media are literally saying don't exist. We're back to this now. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. We're back to this now. Remember, the young Trump voters didn't exist. That was a mirage, right? The black and brown Trumpward movement didn't exist. That was a mirage. That was just a result of, low quality polling, right? Do you remember all of this? We're back to this now. It's unbelievable. Only this time, it's coming from Trump's most fervent supporters. If you recall, most of that was coming, or supposedly his most fervent supporters. It was coming from the Ron DeSantis crew in the primary, and then even after the primary, when they thought that Trump was going to lose. They thought he could not win, if you remember. And they were saying that the polling from myself, Mark, others who just happen to poll right time after time and time, and I guess we must have sold our soul to the devil to be able to be right that much, that often, and that specifically. Time and time again, I guess we're just wrong now. Okay, we were so right before, but I guess now we're just wrong. And these voters, taking a cue from Team DeSantis, a la 24, these voters just don't exist. They exist. And many of them, as I have tried to explain as well, were not Republican loyalists. And it was the job of the Republican Party, the primary job of the Republican Party after 24, to look at the map. Doesn't take a data genius. Look at the map and realize, acknowledge that you did not perform, you being Republicans down ballot and the rest of the party, you did not perform at Donald Trump's level with these voters. And you are now the party of lower propensity voters. Now, the kicker is we've seen this in history before. It didn't have to be the case. It didn't have to be inevitable. And yet, here we are. I will say this, part of this, which I've criticized them to their face about. When the Democrats break out the big guns, when they break out Barack Obama, it means they know that they could be in trouble, or they know they are already in trouble. And you have to match that with the only guy that you have capable of generating the same level of enthusiasm with your voters, or the voters you hope to win and you hope to get out to vote, as Barack Obama does for the left. Obama has, with the exception of 08, Obama has always been able to skirt otherwise, I don't say hopeless races, but races that they should have lost. He's been able to do that not by reaching those voters. Because the truth is, the voters we're talking about, even if they did vote for Obama once upon a time in 08, they have long been gone. Barack Obama was only reelected because he motivated his base. He did not reach these other people or truly persuadable people. By that time, they were already off the Obama train. And then by 16, many of them jumped on the Trump train. They are now Trump voters, or many of them are just Trump or bust, meaning they're not going to go out and vote for a Republican unless you motivate them to do so. And right now, they're unhappy. Right now, they think they elected Donald Trump, to put out the brush fires in the Middle East and, stop the Ukrainian war. They don't see that. In the Middle East, tremendously popular. His peace deal is tremendously popular. But a lot of voters are like, look, but isn't that the point of a deal? Why are we still so focused on it? Why is the vice president still overseas? And he's not now, but he was. When are we going to start to focus again on what, I elected him to do in most voters' mind, which is to fix the economy that Biden broke? Because voters weren't dumb. They knew that COVID was basically, everything was rebounding by the time Donald Trump handed Joe Biden the keys and said, here you go, Joe. It's in your hands now. They wanted him to come back and bring with him that robust economic growth that wasn't just in a few indicators, but was everywhere. In fact, before COVID, the only thing that was missing was the last cylinder, really the last cylinder that wasn't firing, which was the housing market. And it did, right before COVID, started to fire right up. New residential statistics, home builder sentiment, everything was going gangbuster. The pending home sales index, the existing home sales index, the National Association of Realtors was elated. And then COVID hit. And so all they remember is an economy that Trump killed for like a month, but then brought back for the most part. Where's the manufacturing? Where are the job openings that they used to have? Job openings aren't looking good right now, guys. They're not. Small business optimism is not great. Our registered voter economic confidence survey isn't horrible, but it's not where you want to be. And I don't yet know myself what the results of the Registered Voter Economic Confidence Index will be once it's done and it's over with. I can tell we don't poll throughout the day on weekdays. There have been some people who are finishing their interviews that were contacted over the weekend. It looks like about 137 of them as of today, completed as of today. So we have some time to go, but we will take a sneak peek because I can tell you right now, we actually asked a question, which I found to be extremely interesting. All right. I'm going to read you the question before we get into early vote data, and then we'll come back and we'll do this a little bit more. We got everything. I went polling bananas this weekend. I did. I could see that the political violence survey was wrapping up. What a monumental pain in the ass to ask like 8 questions, but people lie. They lie. So we had to do this a different way. But I could see it was, and I wanted to get a bunch of things. I wanted to get generic ballots. I wanted to get Trump's approval. I wanted to get a generic ballot that leaned, including with the, you know what, I'm not really undecided. I'm not going to vote kind of thing. We had voter screens, the president's approval on specific issues, which we did 4: the economy and jobs, immigration and border security, foreign policy and national security, inflation and cost of living. We did favorability ratings for congressional leaders, Trump, Vance, and then the Republican Party and the Democratic Party, because the stuff we're seeing out there is a joke. And the president's even tweeting them. Believe me, Mr. President, the Democratic Party's favorability rating is not 19% or whatever the hell Quinnipiac put out. They're doing that. They're playing you. They're giving you red meat that they know you're going to blindly believe. All the people online are going to blindly believe and then share it like crazy. Meanwhile, the other part of the poll is horrible for you. They're playing you. There is no legitimate polling environment, where a party is going to fall to 19%. It doesn't happen. It's never happened. It's not going to happen. That is not the country we live in. We also did a rank distribution for issues. So economy and jobs, cost of living, inflation, immigration, border security, foreign policy, national security, healthcare, the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare, crime and safety, environment and climate change, election integrity, election reform, gun rights, gun control, abortion rights, abortion restrictions. And we said, do us a favor, huh? Rank these, please, from the issue most to least important to your vote. And I think the results will speak for themselves. But after that, this is the question. Thinking about foreign affairs versus domestic issues, which comes closer to your view regarding the focus given by the Trump administration. And one is they've been too focused on foreign affairs and not enough on domestic issues. The other one is too focused on domestic issues, not enough on foreign affairs. Their focus has been balanced and is just about right between foreign affairs and domestic issues. Obviously, I've been doing this a long time. I've been doing this a very long time, folks. And I know from what I'm hearing during the interviews, I know what we need to flatly ask them so they can better convey what they're trying to tell us. So we went a little bit without that and then decided, hold on, we're going to add this. And we even recontacted people, by the way, and said, hey, it's a follow-up, couple follow-ups, and threw another 2 questions at them. All right. So yeah, interesting stuff. I blew the budget out the water. Laura was like, I'm like, but at least I got the VP yelling at me. That's always fun. But I think it will be absolutely necessary because I think Republicans aren't understanding the environment we're in. And we can't have 2 major parties not living in bubbles. We just can't have that. Someone's got to pop the bubble. And the voters are going to scream at the top of their lungs until those bubbles are popped. At least one of them is popped. And In the case of New Jersey, which is a great way to segue, pivot into this, they are screaming at the top of their lungs by simply not voting. So I did tell you guys that in-person early voting was going to be a great indicator for us as far as whether or not we would see a massive surge in Republican enthusiasm and in turnout, because of course the polls were showing that Jack Ciattarelli had all of the enthusiasm. The problem is they needed to be within a certain range in order for them to really have a chance. And if we look at the historic data, which we can look up right now, I do agree with Michael Prusier. I see your comment on the side. Give me a second. I'm going to put it up. Yeah, they're about 10 points. Republicans are underperforming about 10% of the overall share of in-person voting than they really need to be. They're about 5 percentage points behind 2024, which is about 10 overall where Jack needs to be if they're going to have a chance. All right. So here is the historical, meanwhile, across the river. I mean, I want to stay one thing at a time, but across the river, holy shit. New York City, which is typical low turnout, that may be bad for Mamdani. We just have to see. I don't like some of the shares of the electorate that I'm seeing as far as like whether or not they can stop Mamdani with some kind of a, real upset. I mean, when you're talking about polls being wrong, one of the biggest misses for a New York mayoral race was the election right after Rudy Giuliani. Bloomberg was down. I believe it was down like double digits. Giuliani came out, endorsed the guy in front of a microphone, and the race literally turned so fast because it was right before the election. The race literally turned on a dime, double digits, so fast that the pollsters really couldn't catch it. And Bloomberg went on, of course, to win. But Bloomberg was losing. It was probably the most powerful endorsement in the history of politics. Yeah, I'm serious. And the only reason why I say that, because, of course, Trump's endorsement is probably overall the most important endorsement in modern politics that we have ever measured, probably in history as well. But as far as a specific instance of an endorsement, Giuliani's was just such a game changer in such a short amount of time. All right. I remember the press conference and I'll never forget it. I watched it with my own two eyes and it was like, you just knew. Well, that's it. Democrats had a chance. They don't now. Bloomberg will win this election. Of course, he did rather easily. But we have to wait because turnout is so gangbuster. This is going to eclipse the historic turnout that New York City saw, at least at this rate, it will eclipse it. In the last record breaker, which was Giuliani himself against Mayor Dinkins. All right, so that tends to bode well for Republicans when there's higher turnout, but we are talking about a very deep blue city. And right now, I'm just not seeing the shares for some of the boroughs that we would need to see for there to be this huge upset. I will say this, New York did tick down as a share yesterday. Actually, it was really as the numbers rolled in from yesterday. It ticked in, and I mean, it came in and it ticked them down about, it was like 4 basis points or something. But Kings County went up from 27.8 to 30.1 as the overall general vote share. All right, so it's a lot of votes. Kings County is just under 50,000 votes at this point that we're looking at come in. It's big. I mean, it's obviously by population that is, not surprising. But New York itself ticked down a little bit. Queens sitting just under 24%, 23.63, 7.6 for Richmond, right? And then the Bronx is only 8.6, and that they are smaller boroughs, folks, but this is where Cuomo and or Sliwa are they're splitting votes anyway. So it's like very difficult to tell how much this will matter right now. I'm sorry. Excuse me. That was in the general vote share. Yeah, I'm right. All right. So yeah, I was right. Kings is about 5 points lower than it was at the primary. I mean, in the primary as far as overall share, which of course is part of the reason Mamdani was able to pull off what he pulled off. But you would need a lot higher in the Bronx and in Richmond at this point. So a lot of votes got to come out of Staten Island, and just not seeing it. And I know I'm over here talking about this, and I have New Jersey on the screen. So let me just get to my little talking points here on New Jersey. If we can give some kind of added up thing here. All right. So again, these are good, solid numbers. There's about 68,665 in person over the first 2 days for Democrats, only 63,178 over the first 2 days for Republicans. That gives the Democrats a raw vote edge of just under 5,500 votes, which is about 3.4%. That, again, roughly is where on this day, after day 2 in 2024, Republicans are lagging that benchmark. And I know it's a presidential cycle, but they need this. They have to juice this out. We don't have apples to compare to, because back in 21, the last race, for the last gubernatorial election in the state of New Jersey, of course, and Jack Ciattarelli was in it, narrowly lost to incumbent Murphy. We don't have that race to compare in person like that. So we have no choice but to use 2024. And then I'm telling you, either way, it doesn't matter, because this is about a 10-point underperformance from what I told you guys they needed. This is not good enough. This is not good enough. They really needed like a +8 to a +10. I mean, it's not good. All right. We did say, I think I said minimum of 8. Somebody can fact check me on that. But that would still be fine. I mean, considering where we ended up with the mail-in by the time in-person started. And better would be 10. And that is just not happening. Not even close. All right. So, yeah. So just to let you, I mean, they're 12 points behind where they would be to feel real comfortable. And they're 10 points behind to make this a race. All right. So, yeah. I mean, so you guys understand. I mean, this really needs to say like R+8. Yeah, I'm talking about in-person early voting, and it's not. Right? Democrats putting it up, and, I can't say I'm surprised. Look at where it's coming in, too, which is a real issue. I'm just getting blown up over here. I know people are antsy. I mean, you don't get the vote. The viewers get a sneak peek first, y'all. I don't know what you're calling me for. I'm not giving it to you until I'm ready to give it to you. All right, but you can see where this is coming from. Let's take a Republican county, for instance. Monmouth, okay? The in-person early vote, that's a good number for Republicans from Monmouth, but it's not great, all right? I'm more concerned with, for instance, Morris, which Trump did phenomenal in. I mean, he flipped Morris County, and this is where Republicans would have to put up some even bigger numbers. Ocean is a very Republican county outside of like places like Asbury Park. There's some Democratic pockets. But it's just not enough in those counties. Plus what you would want to see if you're a Republican in some of the more battleground areas, in person in Atlantic, they're only up like 600 votes, guys. They're not even. It's actually 595. No, it's one down. Yeah, 599. Right. And you got to understand this is why I wanted to wait to poll New Jersey. If somebody gave a very generous contribution and got us much closer, but I wanted to wait anyway, not because of the funding situation, but because of these numbers now are real numbers. And we would ask, how did you or do you intend to vote? Did you already vote and you did it by mail? Now we know about him. Now we have days of in person. So we would literally be able to ask that. I would be able to verify the findings that we're getting, but also if we are getting that correct distribution, then we'll be able to further trust. Like, for instance, how are the others breaking? We know they're breaking for Ciattarelli, but the polls are all over the place. Is he winning them by 15 points or is he winning them by 3 or 5? 3 or 5 is not enough. It's just not. So, yeah, we'll have to see. But as you can see in the turnout rates where is Monmouth again? Let's just put Monmouth up. it looks like Republicans have a significant advantage in when you just look at the raw votes, but by turnout, it's actually not the case. I mean, Democrats are gangbuster even in Monmouth County, 16.14% turnout compared to 9.58. So no bueno. The others, are hard pressed to break 5 in most of these counties. They're below. That will go up as time goes on, of course, for obvious reasons. But this is just not it's at this point, this is not enough. I'm just being real with everybody. I think Republicans are going to have, they may have to lose a couple elections here before they snap out of it. I don't know what else to say. I really don't. I mean, there's a difference, without a doubt, between gubernatorial elections and national elections for, say, Congress or Senate or the presidency. I mean, the midterm cycle, we're only obviously going to deal with the House and the Senate. National issues, the administration itself, they certainly have more bearing on federal races than they do, say, like gubernatorial races like this. That's the case. Absolutely. But we can see from the Emerson polling that Democrats are motivated or not by Trump. And they're motivated or not when they get visits from like Barack Obama or ads from Barack Obama. Republicans have to counter that energy with the same thing. So I don't think this had to be the case, but because they didn't acknowledge this problem fast enough, and I'm not sure they even have yet, poor Trump is going to have to run around and win everyone's races. I mean, that's what it looks like. He had to do this in 2018 for a lot of Senate races. And I feel like we're kind of at this point now again, guys. I really do. And I'm not saying that's right. They better figure it out because, I mean, Trump is not going to be around forever. Oh, wow. We just got a huge return of interviews, by the way. It's like 400. Wow. That's great. But I don't want to look at them because I don't know what the demographics are of them yet. So I'll have to make sure that we look at prior responses. Okay. But yeah, I just think Republicans, they themselves, I'm trying to figure out the right way to put it. They allowed themselves to sit in what is without a doubt a bubble. And their friends, online and advisors and around people at, the White House, for instance, and in Congress, they thought things were better than they were. And they're listening people. And, it's like, I just don't, I don't understand how you don't believe, number one, all the people that got it right before. That's number one. And number two, you don't believe your own eyes. I'm going to play this clip here in a second. The number one issue in rank distribution, far and away, is cost of living, economy, and jobs. Can I show those just last 400 and something? I think I can. Hold on. Let me just I'll take a screenshot and I'll show up. It's just the batch we just got, but it's not different, guys. Is my point. This is what we've seen for days. I just don't want to get that button in there. Yeah. Give me a second. Bear with me. This literally just came in. Otherwise, obviously I would have did this prep before, but it literally just came in. It was 100 and something before. This is a decent sample size. We'll go ahead and add this with the rest of what we got over the weekend, and that'll be the national poll. Dunsky. All right. I did not look at the generic ballot yet. I don't know yet. I'll look at it, though. I mean, I will, but okay, let's put this up. Actually, we can present it as an image file, can't we? And it will, separate. I think that probably is a screenshot to the desk. Yep, there it is. Okay, yeah, let's just throw it up. Give me a second. Boom. If I put it up, it's probably going to go right over there, but that's okay. I'll make it bigger, and so you guys can see it. This is the batch that literally just came in. Percentage-wise, it's not all that different from what we've been seeing. All right, this is the rank distribution. Right there, you can see the score. And you can see the number of ranks. Of course, there's going to be a full number of ranks for each rank distribution. The question is, how many ranks did one of these issues get for number one? How many ranks did one of these issues get for number two? Right? And that's how rank distribution is done. You can see cost of living and inflation over here in a league of its own with the economy and jobs. Healthcare is actually third. That is not good for Republicans. Not good. I want to say immigration was third on the overall, but I don't know. We'll see. Immigration is behind even crime and safety at this point. I got to tell you guys, like, this is the curse of being effective at certain things. And it's the difference between Donald Trump, and he deserves credit for this. It's the difference between Donald Trump and other politicians. And I know he doesn't like that characterization, but when Donald Trump gets elected and his most powerful issue is something like immigration, and he says he's going to handle it, he's going to handle it. The downside of that politically is that Americans can have some short-term memory loss, okay? And they'll no longer prioritize an issue that they know, even though it was catastrophic before, that they know is basically being handled. All right, so Trump gets great marks on this, by the way. He said he was going to do this. He stopped it. He said he was going to stop the Biden, invasion. He stopped it. But it means that will now fall, because it's going to the back of their mind. That will now fall on the scale of most to least important. All right. So I like rank distribution because it tells us when a few issues, when you ask a poll and you just say, give me your number one issue, people are forced to pick which one their number one issue is, but it doesn't mean that's the only issue that they're voting on and that they care about. And it's what's motivating them. Rank distribution gives you a much better idea. They're a pain in the ass to put in a crosstab, so bear with me when I do. I'll have to explain it to you guys, but you don't get a beautiful little chart like this that lays it out for you visually. It's a bunch of statistics. I may even try to put them in like KPI scores or something, so it makes it better for you guys to reference, or easier for you guys to reference and understand. But I really do like rank distribution because, you can look at this and you can see right now that the top three issues are basically all pocketbook issues. And Republicans aren't paying attention to that at all. Look where foreign policy and national security is. Now, if I recall, it might have been a little bit higher on the rest. And I'll go back and we'll look at them and I'll put them together. Obviously, this is going to get put in the same data set as the rest of the weekend. But not headed in the right direction. The better news for Republicans is that nobody cares about abortion. That conversation is over. Over. All right, so let me remove this, put the early vote back up on the screen again, and that's good. I'm telling you right now, why am I going here with this? Because in New Jersey, if you look at Mark's poll, it was all about this, all about pocketbook, all about their inability to survive. All right. I can't credit who this meme is for because both links that we looked at, I don't think gave us, is there a credit on this video? If there isn't, I'll do my best to go back and get that credit, but it's 2:40. We're going to take a little break and we're going to play this for you guys while we do. All right. We'll be back. You're watching Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. Don't forget, if you like the videos, to like them and share them far and wide. Link to the public polling project is below, as is the best place to follow us, which is right here on Locals. peoplespundit.locals.com, peoplespundit.locals.com, where you will get the results of all of these things before everybody else. Registered Voter Economic Confidence Index, the generic ballot, favorabilities, approvals, issue ranking, which is just incredible, and a bunch of other stuff. By the way, on the other survey, wait until you see the size of the population that considers themselves transgender and binary. Laura and I were talking about this morning. How did they completely dominate the conversation? No. Then again, identification has gone down. There's that. About a year after the pandemic is, I think, when it hit an all-time high. Are you surprised? I said at that time that our response to this pandemic, which was an over response and a calculated one, intended to have a political and societal effect, and they intentionally did this. But I said we were going to have negative impacts that really are immeasurable. Deaths of despair that we're going to have to widen that definition on, because there will be so many things attributed to pandemic policy that, you know, they won't be clear and evident right away until later when we realize it. But children's learning, their cognitive abilities, with masking and keeping them out of school and all this other crap, it's very clear that there was this surge in gender identification after the pandemic, and now it's back on its way down, which is, in my opinion, it's a good thing. I do agree with the vast majority of Americans where that isn't a legitimate, it's not a civil right, and it's not a legitimate, I'm being careful because I think it's a medical disorder. I think it's here. I think it's in your brain. I think there's something wrong with you. I do. And I don't mean that, hey, you know what? Live your life how you want to live it and whatever. But I don't think it's normal human behavior. And I don't think it's something that should be celebrated. It's very clear from the results of this study and others that there's a complex combination of like medical health issues combined with like social fad phenomena. Like that is what we're getting from this. And again, it was portrayed as like the new civil right, the new fight over civil rights or something. And that, of course, is just as crazy as thinking that you have a vagina if you were born with a penis, or if you were born with a penis, you should cut it off and make a fake vagina. Like that's not, just say it out loud. Say it out loud. But the original point is that the percentage is so low. Like, what the hell are we talking about? It's crazy. All right. Let's put this meme up. I think you're going to laugh. Maybe not, actually. Maybe this looks like you at the grocery store. Okay? All right. See you guys soon.
Find everything you need today?
Yeah.
Great. Okay.
No!
Everything okay, ma'am?
It's just that you've only scanned a few items and it's already $60. I'm so scared.
Okay, I'm a trained professional, ma'am. I've scanned a lot of groceries. I need you to stay with me. This isn't gonna be easy, so I need you to be brave, all right? What's your name?
Patricia.
Trisha, all right. I need you to take a deep breath. We're about to do the cheese.
Oh my God! The numbers are going up so fast!
Don't look up there. It only makes it worse. Keep your eyes on me, okay?
Can't you just scan something less expensive?
I can, but let's not forget, it's the little things that add up, all right? Now brace yourself. I'm about to do the mixed nuts.
Oh my God, I'm gonna pass out!
Okay, bite down on this, Patricia. Get ready. I'm gonna do the cured meats.
No, stop! I can't do this anymore!
It's too late. There's a line behind you, okay? You're locked in.
I'm not strong enough.
I know it looks like a lot right now, but I promise you, you're gonna get home and you're gonna wonder, what did I even buy? Okay, your total's $257.84. Patricia, it's time to pay.
It's terrible. So terrible. All right, we'll be back in 30 seconds. You're watching Inside the Numbers, guys. My God. Oh boy, that was funny though. Admit it. I mean, it's not though. It's not, but it is. I don't know who to attribute that to. It was on multiple people's feeds, so there was no clear thing. If you guys ever seen that and you know who made that, shoot that over to me, or put it in the chat or something, because I think it's hilarious. All right, there are two articles in light of all this that I think I want to read. Where is the one which goes to what I'm saying? Looks like one other poll from Coefficient. just released Cheryl +1. I mean, I don't know. Maybe, guys. Like, maybe Republicans are going to surge at the last minute. Maybe Chitterelli is winning an overwhelming number. If there's a video, I'm going to vomit. I'm sorry. Maybe they'll win an overwhelming number of independents. I just don't see it. I really don't. I think Trump really needs to keep like this. Vance and Rubio would make a great duo, an unstoppable duo. If they formed a group, they would be unstoppable in 2028. Trump said. Somebody stop them from talking over there. Just killing themselves, just absolutely killing themselves. Marco Rubio is great at being what a certain group of Republicans want him to be, but the policies and what he represents is not the direction forward the Republican Party needs to take. And if they do that, and especially if it's like rubber stamped by Trump, they're finished. I mean, that's it. That's not the coalition. Yeah, sure. He himself, his own ethnicity is part of the coalition, but he doesn't himself represent policy-wise what that part of the coalition wanted. Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to be nice here, David, but the guy's running a coup in Venezuela. Okay, like the guy is running a coup attempt made to look like a counter drug offensive in Venezuela. Like, you've got to be kidding me. Now, honestly, if you're a Republican, why would you want to fix Venezuela? I'm sorry, it's time to just talk straight here. Why on earth would you want to fix Venezuela? Anyone? Venezuelans voted like 40 points for Donald Trump. Keep it a shithole. And since Democrats want to import all of the people they think are going to vote for them, let Venezuela fail, continuously fail, and just open the door for them. They're all going to set up shop in South Florida, next or adjacent to the Cuban enclaves, because that's what they've been doing. And it's just more votes. Expand that to Texas and make sure you counter the white, liberal, educated, left-wing Anglo-Saxon voters, what they call them, Anglos. That's what they called them back in the day in Texas. When I was coming up, the Bushies, the Karl Roves, they called white voters Anglos. The Anglo voters. Where is this Michael Barone article? It's driving me nuts. What happened to Michael Barone's article here? I literally just read it this morning. Well, not just. It was up here at like 9 a.m. I guess it's gone already. Is a Democratic early brewing disaster brewing in Virginia. I mean, I don't want to read that until we read Barone's, because there's some stuff I think Barone is failing to get across, because, of course, is this it? Nope, that's USA Today. Oh, hell, man. This is ridiculous. How did I lose this Michael Barone article? Of course, I could just type it in the search bar. Barone. Right? Can't I just do that? There it is. The trends in Jersey and Virginia. Okay. Let's not to throw cold water on anything. To simply show or explain what Republicans are up against in Virginia, because there are so many people who want to take early voting data that they think is good for Republicans, and they're not taking it in its context. And that's just true. All right. I guess they took the entire article off, and it's just now on the Washington Examiner. That's okay. It's just the Examiner is filled with ads. So give me a second. Let me get rid of some of them. All right. Let me put this up. Bang. Bang. We're going to read this by Roan, who I think is a practical guy, a decent analyst. I just do think that In the era of Mitt Romney, he should have realized the flaw in his analysis, and he has yet to do that. So I will literally stop to point out what I do think is wise from Barone and what he focuses on versus what he misses, which, is getting worse. Missing these things is worse and worse with every month that goes by and every new election cycle that we come to. If you are Republican, you don't have the time. You can't afford to let these things go unseen, unacknowledged. You were basically at a time before. Trump gave you the Heimlich maneuver, all right? Or I don't even know how to put it. Or maybe not, it's not the best way. The guy resurrected you, CPR style, political CPR style. He resurrected you, and you didn't have let's say your ticker stopped working, right? You don't have time after being resurrected to stuff your fat face with cheeseburgers and fries still to clog up your arteries. Because chances are you're headed for your next not great end result. And maybe this time he will not be around to resurrect you. All right. No two states voted more alike and closer to the national average in last year's presidential election than the two states that have gubernatorial elections in this odd-numbered year: New Jersey and Virginia. New Jersey, 51.8% for Kamala Harris and 45.9% for Donald Trump. Virginia voted 51.8% for Harris and 46.1% for Trump. Aside from the 7 target states and Democrat underperformance in New Hampshire and Minnesota, these were the 2 closest states in the country. It is worth pointing that out. I have myself, right? And the reason, well, specifically for New Jersey as well, which he'll get into, and I don't want to take some of his glory, but New Jersey was one of only 2 states, the other was Hawaii, that voted more for Barack Obama in 2012 than it did in 2008. The entire country shifted against Obama. He became the only president to be reelected with a smaller coalition and fewer votes. No other president has ever been reelected in those conditions and circumstances. They always win by bigger margins, even George W. Bush. Now, New Hampshire and Minnesota are on the radar every election cycle. So what he's trying to say is, look, aside from the 7 target states, and then what was really the 8th and 9th, once upon a time, thought to be battleground states that Democrats underperformed in, these 2 were the closest in the country, and it matters. Although I would say Virginia is a peripheral competitive state, whereas New Jersey was never thought to be, until I argued it was, by the way. They have other similarities. Large percentages of their voters live in metropolitan areas centered on cities outside the state, such as New York City and Washington, D.C. Both of those areas have populations far above the national average in education credentials and income. But there are some big differences. That has tilted them toward the Democratic Party in this era, when upscale voters in line with their liberal stance on cultural issues trend that way. It's a time when million-plus metro areas, evenly divided in the 1980s, have become heavily Democratic, while the half of Americans living outside those big metro areas have, often despite historical Democratic allegiances. What the hell just happened? Something just bumped up. There it is. Despite Democratic allegiances, been delivering increasing margins for Trump's Republicans. That's not really true. It's true in most places, but what he will fail to acknowledge the entire article is that they're not getting Trump's margins. And that is the problem. We've been over this a million times. Do I have it real quick that I could just flash it in front of you again? I do. Here is 2022's margin with college and non-college, you can see that it is almost identical to Trump's. The difference is Trump did a little bit better among those who have some college, even some of them who are educated, because he brings out other people. And it's what these other people are doing with their votes that are causing the underperformance. And then when Trump is not on the ballot, you can have the same margin with high school or less, 59-39, still a 20-point Republican majority. But because because without him, they fail to increase their share of the overall electorate, it isn't enough. And that's what Barone is missing. Okay. I'm just going over this a million times. It comes as second nature to political writers to seek omens in the results and trends of off-year elections. Virginia has provided plenty of grist for their mills, having elected governors of the party that lost the presidential election before in that year in 11 of the last 12 contests starting since 1977. That would seem to give an advantage to Democrats in 2 states carried by Harris. He fails to mention, though, that New Jersey hasn't, for roughly the same time, hasn't elected the same party to 3 terms in the governor's mansion. Right? So they have 2 totally different dynamics going on, or historical, I would say. Historical what's the word? Like they have a different historical nature than each other. It helps that Democrats have managed to nominate candidates with attractive biographies and reputations, despite their general party line voting records as centrists. Both are women with national security experience who were first elected to the House of Representatives in the Democratic year of 2018. Mika Sherrill was a Navy helicopter pilot and later worked as a lawyer. After her military service, she went to graduate school, earning a law degree and an Arabic language certificate. She captured an exurban, traditionally Republican New Jersey district when the incumbent retired, which was disastrous. That was my old district, in fact. She won her first primary easily and has won general elections with 53 to 59% of the vote. By the way, again, another big deal just in 2024. Where Trump dramatically outperformed the Republican candidate in that district. Abigail Spanberger also earned a degree, taught at Northern Virginia's Islamic Saudi Academy, and was an intelligence officer in the CIA for 6 years. She won her suburban House seat, stretching from Richmond to Fairfax County, against an incumbent Republican by 2 points, and then won re-election by 3 and 5 points, and stepped down in 24 with the governor's race in mind. Current RCP polling average, Real Clear Politics polling average, has Sherrill ahead of 21 nominee Jack Ciattarelli by 48 to 44, and Spanberger leading Lieutenant Governor Winsome Earl Sears by 50 to 44. Margins not that far from the virtually identical margins by which Harris carried both states. Republicans hold out some hope in both races. Ciattarelli lost by only 51 to 48 against incumbent Democratic Governor Phil Murphy in 2021. Campaigning against the high taxes that have helped Republicans win 4 of the 8 New Jersey elections starting in 1993, despite the state's Democratic lean in presidential politics. And Sherrill, Republicans say, is on the defensive for having been required not to appear at a graduation from the Naval Academy, apparently for not having reported another cadet's violation of the honor code. I mean, actually, that should have been a much bigger scandal for people who were in the military, even more so, have gone to the Naval Academy. You understand what happened there was actually really bad. In Virginia, Spanberger was set back by the revelation on October 3rd that the Democrat Attorney General candidate Jay Jones sent messages in 22 expressing a desire to shoot the then Republican House Speaker and see his children murdered in their mother's arms. Spanberger expressed abhorrence, but refused to call on him to step aside and announced her early vote for him. October polling shows Jones trailing incumbent Attorney General Jason Mayars 47 to 43. Now, I do want to go over that other article that does pick and choose some good data points for Republicans, but I'm telling you, I don't see it as bad as David Catron sees it from AMAC. All right. Despite their identical responses in 24, these 2 states have different traditions. In assessing the chances for an upstate in either race, it may be useful to look at the different surges of migration, immigrant, and internal that have populated these 2 states over the years. In New Jersey, you can find a trace of, this is just crazy stuff, but whatever. In New Jersey, one can find traces of Dutch settlers, from the Amsterdam and Quakers in the Delaware River Valley from colonial days. That's true. You can still find Allaire State Park in Howell Township by Farmingdale. And yes, that was a Dutch settlement. Further south, you will find Smithburg, all right, which is amazing. And there's the Christmas store there. And Laura and I used to love it. And by the way, if you ever go there, get the Riesling from Tomasello Wineries. It will be the best Riesling you will ever taste. Ever. Period. They make a lot of other fruity wines and stuff too. They're dessert wines. But the Riesling, they have 2 or 3 of them. Depending on what you want to pay. They're all delicious. Of course, the Gold is the most phenomenal Riesling ever, but you're going to pay like $40 for 2 glasses of wine. Incredible. But yeah, while they're there, they're not huge amounts of the population anymore, which gets to the big surge in migration that came from descendants of the Ellis Island migration of 1892 to 1924. Italians, Jews, Poles spilling over from the big cities across the Hudson and Delaware rivers. This is part of my own story, folks, okay? These were actually Ellis Island migrants, like my family, who went to the 5 boroughs, but left the 5 boroughs and, in pursuit of a better life and safer areas and better schools, and would end up in like a Jersey suburb somewhere, like in Monmouth County, in Ocean County, right? There's a lot of Jews in Ocean County and Lakewood Township, right? And by the way, I'm talking about traditional Jews and Hasidic Jews. There's a lot of large populations of Hasidics in Lakewood. There's a lot of Poles and Italians, both in like Monmouth and from like Howell to Freehold and Manalapan and Marlborough, all those areas that are up and down Route 9. That's true. However, something's been going on with them for a long time. But let me finish what Barone says about them first, because he is right. Their offspring responded favorably to the appeals of Bill Clinton and Barack Obama. True. And by the way, my parents responded favorably to Bill Clinton. Also Ronald Reagan in some weird way of doing it, right? My grandparents did. They're Democrats, 100%, but not for Ronald Reagan. Ronnie got their vote. They loved Ronald Reagan. As the anti-tax constituency was reduced, however, by migrants to Florida, and that has been New Jersey's problem. Tons of, I don't want to call them only anti-tax. Yes, the cost of living was a huge reason for people in my generation and our parents to leave the state of New Jersey and leave New York. New York gun laws was a massive reason for their loss in population. Certainly financial, but especially among hunters who are Poles and Italians that once upon a time, maybe they had a cabin upstate or something that would leave the 5 boroughs, go to their cabin and hunt whitetail, stuff like that. When New York got very bad with gun laws, they all fled. All right. But inflation and illegal immigration in the Biden years have pushed them toward Trump, who raised Republicans' presidential percentages from 41 in 12 to 20, from 41% in 2012 to 2020 to 46% in 2024. Right. But Republicans lagged behind him at least 5 points still. That move was accentuated by Trumpward moves among Hispanics. And we've talked about this before, in like Gloucestershire and that part of the state. The 1940 to 1965 northward migration of black people has ebbed in New Jersey. That's true. Leaving only 2 municipalities, East Orange and Lawnside. East Orange is a shit hole. And there's a VA hospital there that you got to go with full T50 just to make it to the front door. And God forbid you get prescribed a Percocet, you better be armed on the way out of that mother, because you will get robbed. They see that little mark on the side of that bag, boy, they're coming for you. It's a bad area. There are only 2 municipalities, East Orange and Lawnside, with black majorities. In contrast, the post-1982 Hispanic migration has produced 29 municipalities with Hispanic majorities. These are the ones specifically that Trump was doing great in. In 2/3 or more Hispanic, Trump made major gains in 24, reducing average Democratic margins from 40%, not the share, the margin, to just 12%. And we pointed out Steve Kornacki's analysis as well, that if Citarelli in 21 would have won Trump's 24 percentages in majority non-white municipalities, he would only have lost the election by 0.3%. Now, that's with Trump level turnout and him winning the margins that he did. Virginia is a different story. The demographic surge has been an influx of affluent, highly educated Americans, plus relatively high-skilled immigrants, with significant numbers of Asians and Hispanics over the past 30 years. But we've gone over this together, right? The difference even in the Asian migration. There's an entire show on this. We explain this. The difference in Asian migrants in the last 2 decades, specifically in Virginia, way different than the Asian migration you got in the 90s. Which was actually a relatively conservative, anti-Tiananmen Square kind of migration. This is not that. This is a migration of highly skilled, the Chinese Communist Party is practical migrant. That's the kind of migrant you're getting there. Northern Virginia's share of the statewide vote went from 25% in 1980 to now 36% in 2024. In the 3 elections, Trump, obviously he got Northern Virginia at 60, 65, and 61%. They voted Democratic, putting a state safely in the Democratic column that, with just one exception, has voted comfortably Republican from 1952 to 2004. That's notwithstanding Trump's 50, 50, and 52 wins in the rest of Virginia, which is similar to his showings in next door North Carolina. In that setting, Spanberger's cold-blooded refusal to renounce Jones and her stubborn refusal to oppose girls and boys sports looks like an effort to avoid disenchanting Democratic voters in one of the strongest anti-Trump constituencies in America. Trends may be working for Trump's party in Virginia, but less so. In New Jersey, but less so in Virginia. And yet, the numbers look awful in Jersey. And there's actual people arguing on AMAC that there might be a Democratic disaster brewing in Virginia, which I would absolutely refute. And I'm going to. But I'll read it and we'll get there. The bottom line is, why is this happening? Why is that? Because Michael Barone does appear right that New Jersey may be better, more fertile opportunity for Republicans. I tend to think they're blowing both so badly that it is possible with the turnout looking the way I'm seeing in-person turnout, this race could really get away from them if they don't pick up the pace really soon. But in New Jersey, it was going to require more work. There's the Save New Jersey PAC. There are people that are trying, but big figures don't want to lend their help. And Democrats are all in. The amount of money that has been raised is unbelievably lopsided in favor of Democrats. Republicans just haven't been willing to do what it is needs to be done to change a state like New Jersey. The voters are there. Those numbers are there. We've been over this before. I'm not going to bust the map out, the voter file out again. But you need to recognize that New Jersey is like Pennsylvania in 2012. And Trump is now on the tail end of his career. A lot of what happened in Pennsylvania was Trump coming along, changing the nature of the party and how people saw it, and then kind of exacerbated and took advantage of what was something that was organic anyway. Republicans were a mess in that state. I would actually say it's probably Pennsylvania circa 2010, because it's not quite there yet. By 2012, we were still looking at a D+8 electorate. So yeah, it's not there yet, but it will require that level of attention, that level of love in order to change that state. You have to get out people who don't vote, guys, who don't typically vote, because you're losing so many of what would have otherwise been your natural base. They're gone. They moved from Tom's River to Myrtle Beach. You understand what I'm saying? They're gone. There's so many of them that you're going to have to replace them. You got to do it with these non-white votes who love Donald, don't like you. You got to do it with these other working class, not only white, but there's a large working class white constituency that's not even a constituency anymore. You have to make them one. They're all over. Think places like Jackson Township, where they're just like off the grid. All right. Virginia statewide off-year elections this November were predicted by most experts to be an easy win for the Democrats. Usually, the party that wins the White House struggles in the Old Dominion during the following year. Might as well rename that state to the New Dominion. Yet the most reputable polls show a much tighter race than expected. Even more surprising, after 5 weeks of early voting, the heavily Republican areas of the Commonwealth have consistently had stronger turnout than have the state's Democratic strongholds, perhaps setting the stage for a historic upset. Look, there's definitely places I can go around the map and say, you know what, this is a good sign for Republicans in Virginia. I could do that. But we do have a couple of sites that we really have nothing to compare them to. The fact of the matter is there's stuff where you can you can point out for the Democratic Party as well, right? So some of these like swingy areas where Youngkin did much better. Think like Chesterfield, right? Less rosy picture for Republicans. All right, so I don't think it's that simple. But whatever. Let him make his case. The top of the ticket this year features we know. Spanberger's campaign strategy relies heavily on her having a substantial early vote lead in order to offset the Republican turnout advantage that is expected on Election Day. So far, that has not happened. If current trends hold and the Republican early vote tally remains higher or even equal to that of the Democrats until November 4, Earl Sears will likely become the first Black woman in history to be elected governor of a state. I just disagree. All right. Early voting began on September 19th. According to the VPAP, turnout is far higher, 145%, than it was the year at this point in 21, just before Youngkin defeated Democrat Terry McAuliffe. Yet the increase in turnout has been weak in heavily Democrat readouts. Norfolk, for example, is one of Virginia's largest cities and notoriously dominated by the Democrats. Yet its 2025 vote total is only 10% higher than it was at this point in 2021. Only 10% higher? Guys, there's a shit ton of votes in Norfolk. A shit ton. You don't have to be that much higher when you're squeezing that kind of a blood out of that size of a stone. All right, so where else does he go here? All right, go by this. That's actually good. As of October 24th, the VPAP shows that 898,559 early ballots have been cast throughout the Commonwealth, 454,521 in Republican districts, and 444,038 in Democratic districts. That lead seems modest until one considers that the Democratic districts outnumber Republican districts 6-5. Yet, despite the disadvantage, the GOP has consistently maintained a lead in the early votes cast. But it also says, and I'm glad it pointed out, that there are a lot more Democratic districts than Republicans. It means they have a larger pool to draw from. They will not exhaust their tap like Republicans could, in fact, do. All right. So not could, in fact, do. I think they probably are getting to that point pretty soon. All right. So look, you're going to need to change something for Earl Sears to become the governor. And that is the voter that we polled ourselves for somebody, which I hope see. There are too many voters who are saying, I'm voting for Mayoris, but I'm also voting for Spanberger. These are independents largely, and Spanberger's margin with them is significantly better than the margin that Jay Jones has, which is negative, actually, among independents. So I just don't, I don't know, guys. I don't see it. And once upon a time used to be some statistical significance with a candidate being at 50 or above, which we're just not talking about that much anymore in polling. But I just don't see this gangbuster turnout that other people see in Virginia. I think it generally is, I got a little bit better day two. But I just don't think it is what it needs to be. And the reason, again, it's a little hard to compare these two. It's a little hard to compare 21 to 25. Excuse me. You can't do that because we just didn't have the same mechanism. That many people doing early in-person voting the way that we see now. It's the same situation in New Jersey. you have to compare it to 24, which can give you a little bit of a false sense of like, it can give you a false interpretation when you're not considering that one is going to be presidential level turnout and the other one is not. Youngkin got over, I mean, there was over 4 million votes cast in 21. It was pretty decent turnout. But the reason you can look around the map and say that it's outpacing it from 2021, well, of course it is. There are more mechanisms to vote, and more importantly, behavior changes, and more people are actually voting in person. So I don't think it's enough. Not yet, but we'll see. Got a little bit better. And actually, I don't know, where did he say he was getting that data from? Because I don't know, ours is just different. There's some of the stuff that he said is just actually not true. Like Williamsburg City, by the way. I mean, it was as a percentage of 2024's total vote, it was one of the highest in all of the blue areas and across the state. I mean, you're looking at 80% of total turnout from 24. So I don't know where that's coming from. Which are usually top three. It's one of the top three turnout. What do they call them? Municipalities, and it's still localities in Virginia. I'm thinking municipalities. I'm thinking of Jersey. All right. So there's also some satellites that we don't. There were, just to be clear though, there were satellites in 24. There's just more now. I believe Richmond added the most, I think. But yeah. Which is, I mean, that's kind of another, I won't get into it. It's kind of another story. These Republicans need to figure out ways where they can have these additional satellite spots in extremely red areas. And like, these are rural constituencies and they need more access because Democrats are very good at getting them where they want them. And Republicans are just kind of like blase. All right. It is 3:20. Looks like I am going to have to shut it down here and see about going to get my kid from school. But I just checked. I mean, this survey is going to be done tonight. I really think so. All right. So we will be able to, locals, you'll get it first. I mean, I'll do some bare bones crunching and we'll take a look at it. But before I put it out publicly for everybody, of course, I mean, for locals is different, but for everybody, it will be, it won't go out until it's totally done. We'll have at least 2,000 interviews for the political violence stuff. And we're going to have about 33% more for the national polls. It'll be around 3,000, I'm sure, something like that. That's what I think. By the time people are done filling, we give them a little extra time. It should be in the neighborhood of around 3,000 as far as the sample size, maybe a little bit more. But for the political violence stuff, probably going to be less, I think. It just, well, not probably. It will be. The matter of is how much. 2,000 is a good number. It just is a different animal. And you can't do these things together. There's a lot of sensitive stuff that triggers people, especially certain kinds of people. And you can't collect them together because some is too sensitive for the average run-of-the-mill voter who just wants to, provide his answer on stuff like who you're going to vote for Congress, who you're going to, or do you approve or disapprove, favorable or unfavorable? This other stuff was a lot more sensitive. We asked questions that people were not sure whether they should be honest on. And you'll see. I don't know. I always try to put myself in the voter's position or the interviewee's position. And I always try to think to myself, would I answer this question or would I abandon this survey right now? And you got to be honest. So some of the stuff is tough to get through, guys. It was tough to get through. All right. So get ready for that is my point. Well, it'd be interesting to see whether or not, whoops, that's not the right thing. Let me remove that. But it'll be interesting to see whether or not that stays the case in the right order, because I am telling you immigration was a little bit higher on the overall sample. That was just a group of like 400 and something that came through from people that leftovers. Okay, so there's Laura binging me about getting the boy, making sure I'm at the bus stop in time. So do that. Keep your eye out for it. Don't forget, if you like the videos, to like them and share them far and wide. Those are huge. That's a huge help. Huge help. Subscribe. You know the deal. Best place to follow us, which is where you'll get the polling stuff first, is right below peoplespundit.locals.com, peoplespundit.locals.com. If you sign up over there, you'll see little hands that say, support our polls or something. I don't know. It says, or you could just go to the link below in the video description to the public polling project. And that's how you can help us, fund these polls, get these polls out. Like I said, I went a little bit on a tangent, but they had to be separated. It had to happen. And then I'm like, well, maybe I'll just do 1,000 sample size. I can't. I just can't. I always look back at it. I'll always go and review the demographics and some of the things that we nest and some of the variables that we regroup. You just can't do that. You need more, a lot more. So I did it again. Polling, bigger really is better. All right, guys. It's 3:24. I'm going to kick rocks. All right, so nothing but love for you. Keep an eye out for all that stuff, and we'll see you tomorrow. Thanks for watching Inside the Numbers, and don't forget, deuces. Too focused on foreign policy.